Hey, I'm Anissa. Welcome to Create to Liberate. And today we're going to talk about doing dream work. So, I love to talk about our subconscious. I love to talk about shadow work. I love to talk about healing, mindfulness, and this combines many things that I love. And I had such a juicy dream last night that I think it gives a good example as to how to approach this for yourself if you want to have more connection and communication with the unseen world or your subconscious and unconscious. However, you like to perceive it, you're welcome to. As always, I share wisdom from my own lived experiences. I believe we're all each other's mirrors. We provide a mirror to each other to be able to see ourselves more clearly and ideally empower each other. If you enjoy this, hit the like button. If you're listening on audio, leave a review. Without further ado, let's get into it. I had a ripe dream last night and I realized it will serve as a good example as to if you are in a position of wanting to have more communication with the divine or your unconscious, subconscious, do some shadow work. Obviously, we can always go to professionals who are licensed and they're so powerful, or you can go to a psychotherapist. You can go to all of these people to seek help. Other humans are so helpful, and also you have so much power within yourself to have connection with your unconscious and subconscious. And so, if you are interested in my experience with this, then I will be sharing that with you now. So, for context, I went through a Kundalini awakening in 2023, and it really helped me see my subconscious and unconscious and develop more of a line of communication that other people don't necessarily tap into in this lifetime. I also have more time and flexibility and autonomy to spend more time doing shadow work and healing work. I dedicated all of 2025 to moving away from some of those busyness factors of life so I could tune into my inner world, because I realized that my emotional life was needing attention and needing some unlodging and blocking of traumas, wounds that were in my generation, in my life, and generationally. So one of those patterns appeared last night. Let's get into it. It was a dream in which I was in this very familiar place. It felt alike to a church slash medieval castle slash a middle school. And I came across these people who reminded me of women that I went to middle school with. And they were mainly black women. And the women looked at me and they said, "She's a bird." And then they were like rejecting me, like, "She's a bird." And then I had a few more interactions with men. This one black guy from my school, and him and I were quite good friends, and he was a nice, safe space. Onwards into part 2 of Dream. I was going down the slide and I saw that my mom was going down the slide first. It was a slide slanting down, and she was pouring out a bucket of vegetable soup before she went down the slide. It made her slipperier and able to like glide down. And then I went behind her and I had to be responsible for like cleaning up the soup as she was going down because she was making a mess. So I felt like I was like cleaning up after her. So I wake up in the morning, and these are 2 parts of the dream that are relevant. There was also other parts of this dream that I will not be discussing, but let's focus on these 2 instances and experiences. So my practice before I even go to sleep is I ask for my higher self, for my spirit guides, angels, ancestors, the highest light, to leave any guidance for me. I ask for my oversoul to share any guidance to me in my dreams and allow me to be able to remember my dreams when I wake up. It's really important for me to communicate this with my team after doing a bit of a meditation or just like really tuning into my heart, because I love doing dream work. I love doing this type of shadow work. And what it is a pathway into self-reflection, into self-inquiry, which is where we actually do more of the conscious processing. So in the morning I wake up, I remember these 2 things. I remember much more too. I go to my laptop and I'm writing it all down. So I encourage you to have a pretty immediate interaction with being able to express, because very quickly we get caught up in the things that we have to take care of for the day, setting an alarm, getting our water, and we start to lose and forget what was our dream. So I know that some folks practice drinking a sip of water and they say, in the morning when I drink another sip of water, I'm going to remember my dream. You might find little tricks and hacks that work for you to remember your dream. But for me, it's getting up pretty immediately, opening the lights, and then writing. Just writing down everything that I remember. And then part 2, after I write things down, is I look for symbolism. I look, are there any parts and themes that I'm curious about? And I'll look up spiritual symbolism of certain things like the slide or the bird or soup. What are these things? And I also reflect on what truth these dreams carried, because they're always a mishmash of all these different experiences, and it's all about our perception. It's not necessarily about a raw truth or a real reality, but it is how we perceive ourselves in these moments that can be truthful. So I'll start with dream number 1. I felt very outcasted. There's a truth there that I reflected on when I was in middle school. I did feel very outcasted by the Black community in my middle school. I'm Afro-Latina. I am Black, Caribbean, mixed, Indigenous Black, but I'm not necessarily African American. And I remember moving to this new town in middle school and feeling more ostracized, most by the Black community, even though it was a diverse school, as Black, white, didn't actually have that much racial diversity when I think of it. But it was pretty black and white. But I was deeply rejected by the Black community, more so because I wasn't from the United States in my history, in my family of origin. And because I wasn't from the South Side in the same neighborhood where most of them grew up. And because I traveled when I grew up, I lived in different places. And they were from one place, and they weren't as keen to newcomers. Maybe I was more light-skinned too, and that can be an item of trauma within the Black African-American community, especially where I grew up. So that was a true experience. I had to write down and think back to, wow, what is the truth here? Am I still carrying some feeling of feeling ostracized, the outsider, from feeling bullied? We can go through life and not realize that we still have these old narratives and residue remaining within us years later. From when I was 12 years old, I had this experience, and there's still some part of my subconscious and unconscious that's communicating to me that that's lingering in me when it comes to being in relationship, maybe to Black friends, etc., or Black community here in Los Angeles. Some old recurring narrative of I'm the outsider. So what's really powerful is doing the deeper investigation within ourselves and finding ways that we continue to confirm old beliefs within ourselves, things that are deeply expired, that need to be let go of, that need to be forgiven, so that we can operate in different ways. I had been intentionally moving myself to a lot of Black community and spaces here in Los Angeles and having that old narrative creep up, but I wasn't really aware of it until having this dream that might be a factor in my reason for having a hesitation and feeling acceptance, right? And the bird factor. What is a bird? So spiritually, birds are beautiful because they're like observers. They're at a distance. They're not necessarily in the enmeshment of group. And there's truth to that. There's been so many ways in my life, and maybe you can relate to this, where you feel like you're not included. You feel like you're at a distance. You're this observer. Maybe you're very introspective. You're very inward focused, but you're not necessarily in the group. But it's all a choice, right? We get to make a choice. Do we want to continue to play the role of the person on the outside, or do we want to commit more deeply to being within the group, to being on the ground, to being in the muck with others? Is that something that we can allow ourselves? And I had to take some time to think about that. Is that something that I've been participating in, drifting and flying from place to place, fluttering around and not making that deeper commitment to really deepening with people and being in community? I think it's very common for us these modern days with social media to feel, oh, I am so lonely. I'm so isolated. I just have all these light connections, these followers, or these people that I'm acquaintances with and I'm engaging with their content. These aren't the people that I'm actually intimately close with. The intimacy that we crave often comes from in-person connection most of all. We have a desire to physically be in the physical body connection with other people, and we have to honor that as well, even though there's such a convenience of being on the online world. And so introspection, am I a bird? I've been a bird. Do I want to be less of a bird? Yes, I do. I want to commit more deeply to being part of community. And simultaneously, yes, I am a bird. I do flutter around. I love to travel. And there's such an adventurous side of me that is non-committal when it comes to many things in life. So both can be true. It's not doing this shadow work to be like, I'm going to be different. It's just uncovering some truths and some hidden beliefs, etc. So the purpose of doing shadow work isn't really to shame ourselves further on the truth that we discover. It's just to allow the parts of us that don't get the light, don't get our attention, our conscious awareness to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be loved a little too. I am a little flighty sometimes, and saying to yourself, I love this part of myself. So there's a level of parts work that shows up as you do the shadow work, because there's parts below the parts below the parts in internal family systems, which is a method of therapy. They'll talk about protective parts and childlike parts, but our parts are infinite. There's infinite parts of us, and we get to discover more and more of those, and our dreams are a nice way to begin that journey. So then when I came to dream number 2, for fast forwarding, the slide was an interesting thing to look up, because the slide actually was spiritually symbolic of this descent into the unknown, maybe starting a new journey, an adventure, going below. And then the vegetable soup was an interesting one when it came to nourishment, and my mom being there was significant as well. So in those moments, you want to evaluate your relationship to other people, how you're perceiving other people, how you feel in those moments emotionally, see what comes up for you in relationship to those people in those scenarios. And in relation to my mom going down the slide ahead of me, throwing vegetable soup, I was like, oh, I have to clean up after this woman. And that was my attitude of like, I have to do the cleanup. But the vegetable soup actually symbolic of nourishment. It's kind of this story in many fables of folks coming together around the soup. It's like, you bring a carrot, that villager brings the potato, that person brings the celery. Oh my gosh, I thought we were all poor and had nothing, and I realized we can make a massive stew and we can feed the whole village. That's one of the beautiful things of soup. It's symbolic of something that's very small and goes far. If you've ever made carrot soup, or you ever made ginger something soup, it's amazing how little goes in and how full you feel after eating it. The correlation never makes sense. The math is never mathing. If I just ate a potato, I'd be like, I'm ready for a meal now. But if I blend a potato, add some seasoning, then some broth, it's substantial with a little bread. It goes far. And that's the beauty of soup. And soup is an interesting metaphor in this experience, where she's throwing it down the slide. She's throwing the soup of nourishment, of community, down a slide. She's using it as a gliding force in her moving through the world, and her descent into the unknown, and moving forward. And she's my mother. And so it's like I've witnessed my mom being able to, in my life, yes, be somewhat of a bird, but move from location to location. We moved a lot growing up. Moved from location to location, always building new community everywhere that she went. And I felt some guilt for that. I felt some shame. I felt some responsibility. I tried to always keep in touch with all of these people and all these new chapters of life, and sometimes I had to let them go. I was carrying too much because I had so many lives. I've accumulated many lives in this life. There's a factor of that. And then there's also more than that. So I'll end there with the dream part, and then I'll get into another story. But I'll end there with the dream part, because there's sometimes a lot of stuff that you'll uncover that's generational, that's arising for you. Themes of being wounded and your wounds not being unique to you. Maybe it's something that your parent also experienced or a grandparent also experienced, cousins, uncles, influences in your life. And you're the one here doing the processing of it. And that's powerful. It's powerful to be the one that spends this lifetime doing some excavation and learning and approaching this with curiosity. Our ancestors are probably just like, wish we had the time, wish we weren't in survival mode, wish we weren't in such suffering that we could also do that. And if you are listening to me at this point, you get to do that. Many people feel it a burden to do the healing work. It's a privilege. It's such a joy. It makes life easier. There's levity. You can approach life with much more levity and humor because you're like, wow, this rodeo has come to a close. We are not going to do another round that is silly. There's a silliness factor in my lineage with women around escapism and such. And that's a human pattern. We use many things as vices for escape, but there's this pattern of moving as the solution, as something that we think will solve our problems. But everywhere you go, there you are, which is the title of a book that I recommend by Jon Kabat-Zinn, I believe. We are often seeking a place of peace within ourselves. And in that movement of place to place to place to place, we think we'll find that peace, and it is temporarily there. And back to ourselves, we have to cultivate it. Back to ourselves, we always have to cultivate the things that we seek in the external world. Because it's going to be fleeting, whether it's there or not there. The having it is going to be a fleeting experience. It's going to normalize over time. What felt peaceful, you'll look at more closely and you'll find reasons to not be at peace. One of the visuals I come back to feel peace in my heart, and I recommend this whenever you're looking to feel some level of more peacefulness, to be in this place that you want to be, that you know is more peaceful, visualize it in your mind's eye. Allow yourself to be there. Imagine that you are there. You've experienced it before, so you can bring yourself back to that visual. And you can sink into it as if you are there. And you can remind your body that it's safe to feel that more often. It's safe to move through the world feeling that, even when you're not in that physical space. So one of mine is this beautiful beach that I love in Mexico. And it's a very safe environment too, so I feel very at peace. I could literally be there as a nudist and not get harassed or anything. Just such easeful energy. So I visualize that feeling that I have there. And I remind myself as I move through Los Angeles, sketchy areas, that I have the ability to return to that in myself at all times. And I do. I need it. And we all do. There's so many things externally distracting us from feeling at peace within ourselves. And you get to be that container of peace and grounding no matter where you are. Back to dream work. All right, so writing things down is so powerful. You can do a laptop, you can do a journal, XYZ. Then I love to pull cards. I pull tarot cards on things to ask for a deeper clarification. And because that dream arose between me and my mom, I gave her a call. So I talked to my mom, and the theme naturally arose. I told her a little bit about my dream, and she related to the first part of the dream with middle school and feeling bullied and alienated within communities. She also felt it as being Latina. She has these bright green eyes, and she felt like sometimes she was judged harshly for looking different, for standing out. And there's a lot of reasons behind that have to do a lot of internalized racism and such. Anyways, relating to the other part of the dream, that arose again, and we had a little tiff fight, but resolution around it. And the theme of wanting to be somewhere else. She's in a state of wanting to still be somewhere else, despite being somewhere that she's happy to be on vacation temporarily. She's talking about a place that she doesn't want to return to. And that even frustrated me, and I said to say, you know what? I have difficulty and impatience hearing this narrative. Because what I'd historically do is maybe shut down and suppress. And this day, I felt like choosing a different behavior with the conscious awareness that this was coming up for me. I said, you know what? I'm going to address how this impacts me. I feel like the girl watching you go down this slide, having to clean up after you. I feel this energy in relationship with you still. That's why I lose my patience sometimes, because I feel all this responsibility to clean up, to make the slide clean on behalf of you and the mess and the nourishment, the passing. I feel this. And that's all I needed to say. That was a step forward. That was a pattern break from what I'd normally do, which is play therapist, which is play contained. I wouldn't share how I'm emotionally impacted by this desire of hers or reiteration of certain things. So anyways, with you and your family, or you with any people that you have conflict with, sometimes a success story isn't actually, now everything's great. It's actually you allowed yourself to be in your heart and communicate your emotional feeling, that you're human in relationship to others, that you get to be a human, and everybody's permissions that they need to pattern break into is different. For me, a pattern break out of my normal way of operating, my conscious routine way of operating, is to be more emotional and heart-centered and tell people how I feel, to be more in my feminine, when my historic way of operating is masculine, to be very practical, rational, to be stoic. And that was a pattern break for me. And I think it's just fun to move through life, to do shadow work, not for the purposes of dream work, to be better, but to experience new sides of ourselves, to experience our expansiveness. So any level of this, I hope, inspired you to think about what showed up in your dreams when you were sleeping, if there's any themes that you might want to unpack, and how can you also take that into your real life. We can do shadow work as this exploration of the unconscious and the subconscious and keep it in this dream-like state, or we can also see how we can use it and use maybe our divine team to make our lives more peaceful, to create more healing in this reality. Let me know if this supports you. Regardless, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, a review is so welcome. And I'm sending you so much love in the days ahead. Appreciate you being here.